We'll open this meeting of the Municipal Airport Authority on this Tuesday, August 13th, 2024. Roll call, please.
Here.
Here. All right. Approve the minutes of the regular meeting held July 23rd. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion been made in second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Approved the airport vouchers of $428,181.08.
I move we approve.
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded.
Mr. Chairman,
Roll call, please.
could you just explain
Excuse me, discussion.
maybe number E, if we have an explanation of northern improvement?
We're doing the vouchers, not the individual vouchers.
Correct. I was just asking about that expansion.
And that's
About
under
which
item
one?
Number 4. We're doing 3 right now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Got ahead of it. Never mind.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, approve individual vouchers A through J. Is there,
Move we approve.
move to approve, is there a second?
Did you have a question then
Right,
about?
right. We'll talk about it after we have
Yes.
the motion.
I need a second first.
Second.
Motion been made and second, discussion.
So just explanation of the northern improvement.
That's a progress payment for them for the North General Aviation apron expansion and the North and East Perimeter Road reconstruction. So they're almost done with it, and Jeff will give an update here in a little bit.
That's part of their original
That's correct.
bid.
Yes. We got 90% of that amount back in a federal grant already, so.
Okay, roll call, please.
We're doing item 4, Dr. Brashani.
Pardon me?
Item 4 is what they're looking for approval on. Okay, so
Yes, sir.
Brashani?
Yeah.
Merck?
Aye.
Cosgrove?
Aye.
Bergman? Capitan?
Aye. Item 5, continued discussion regarding approval of the 2025 budget.
Anna is on as well. Just some things for the board to consider, and I think Chair Capitan's got some comments on the cost of living. The current budget has a 3% cost of living built into it based on initial conversations with the city. The employee health insurance, we want to chat about that a little bit per a request from Dr. Brashani. Longevity pay adjustment, the city is adding $25 per classification with their longevity pay that we'd like to match as well. So I don't know if there's any further questions that you have on the budget overall for myself and Tana. Otherwise, we'd look for, I guess, approval with additional discussion on those 3 items I just matched there for your consideration. So Jim, I don't know if you have anything on the COLA.
The proposed budget includes a 3% COLA. City of Fargo is considering 3.5 to 4.5% COLA. The Airport Authority could match or would match the City of Fargo's COLA if higher than 3%. West Fargo is proposing a 4% COLA. Cass County is at 2.5. It would also match the longevity pay as proposed by the City of Fargo. And the city is adding a $25 per month to each level of longevity. So the airport would just match whatever the City of Fargo does. Any other discussion?
Otherwise, we look for approval.
Mr. Chairman,
I'd entertain a motion.
yes, I would, I think this budget for 2025 is more than just the COLA. I'm trying to pull it up here. I'd like to, I know they updated that for us to review. Do you have a copy of the budget? I think I
Yeah,
put
it
it
should be-
together.
Everything
It
was
should be
here.
right. It should be right after the this page, right after the individual vouchers. item number 5 should be.
Item 5.
Here, I'll do mine.
Is Ken on?
Yes, I am.
Can you put up your summary slide from your budget presentation? Yep, proposed revenue expenses on account 561.
Sure. Give me 1 second here. The summary of the expenses for the general fund, you said?
Yeah, I think it's like slide 2 or 3 there. That one right there, yeah.
That's revenue. Here's expenses for you.
No, slide 5.
There you go.
No, next one. Or slide 3, I'm sorry. Looked like a 5. There, that one.
So what's different from, excuse me, what's different from this budget versus what you had received last month was in going through it and doing our double checking, we had left out the Bank of North Dakota interest. And so on, I believe it's like page 5 of the budget in your agenda, the very last line item for the expenses, we added in the interest expense on the debt that we'll be paying, which is $706,000, I believe. So I have updated this slide that you're currently looking at.
Tana, we've got our June 30th statement. It looks like in the June 30th statement, interest income is running 400,000 to $500,000 ahead. Our total income through June 30th looks to be up 800,000. Our net income through June 30th is about 2 million. And as you run those out, we've got 6 months actual, 6 months forecast. Are we confident on those revenue and expense sides?
For the 2025 budget?
Right, given where we are in 24.
Well, I believe so. Sean has gone through them very thoroughly. The only thing we're maybe a little bit under is the assumption of the interest rates. Right now they're 5% or a little higher, and we're not assuming them to be that high. I think we're assuming like that 3.5 range. So we might be under a little bit on the revenues for the interest, but I'm good with that. As far as the expenses, yes, I believe Sean has thoroughly vetted every line item. The only thing that were to change in the expenses would be if we went ahead and increased the salaries. Right now it's a 3% in there. If we increase that by another 1.5%, the salaries would go up at least, 55 to 60,000. And then to add in the longevity pay and potentially, don't want to get ahead of myself, it's in the budget about the health insurance and stuff. So if we did that, I don't have the exact numbers, but I would expect the expenses to increase, 75, 80,000. But when you look at our revenue versus expenses in that general operating fund, if we're doing a break-even budget, we have 3.9 million, net. So even adding another 100,000 expenses for salaries and benefits and things like that would not
So
hurt that too bad.
in 2025, we're anticipating adding 4 million to our cash account, correct?
4 million what?
4 million to our cash account, transferring it to money market to make this a break-even budget.
This would be that we would have a net income in our operating fund of approximately 4 million, which would then go to our savings account to be used for capital projects or just what we have been doing now.
That's a big number. I like it.
It's a little bit higher than last year's, but our revenue is just a little bit higher than last year's budget, and our expenses are just a little bit lower due to some capital expenses in the machinery. So
Okay, so this one from the previous ones just dropped about what, 700,000?
yep, just that 706,000 for that debt interest that we'll be paying.
And I don't know that the Bank of North Dakota was fully, well, Kylie has been running some different numbers. We've only drawn down a couple million from the $40 million loan. And as pay requests come in, we're drawing down the construction cost for the parking ramp on the $40 million loan. And so that interest amount is a little unknown. I'm hoping that the 700,000 is on the high side, but we won't know that until we get into probably January to see what that first payment will be. 2020.
Yeah, and I think you're correct, Sean, because right now we're trying to match up the expense invoices with the Bank of North Dakota draw and kind of play that through into 2025. But if something gets shifted and something is delayed a month or something like that, of course, that's going to change the draw rate and the interest that gets paid. So based on right now, it's based on the invoice plan that McGow has laid out for us for the parking. So if something gets behind, I believe that interest would be on the high side, like you said.
Okay. And Tana, through June 30th of this year, our net income is about 2 million. Do you expect that to hold up through the rest of the year?
I know we have some bigger expenses coming in. But yeah, I don't see that fluctuating much because we are ahead in the interest revenue and stuff for the year as well. So I think we will still be tracking ahead of budget as we go into the third and fourth quarter.
Okay. Do you expect it to hold at the 2 million or do you expect it to increase above that?
Don't hold me to it, but I would like to say I think it's going to increase a little bit because we are tracking higher in some areas.
Okay. And so that money would be available to transfer to savings also, correct?
It would. Any reserves would be used to be able to fund the additional capital projects that we have.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Dr. Bashani, did you want to address the health insurance?
Yeah, and I'm encouraged by the support for the COLA and longevity pay. Although in my mind, the city is a baseline goal, an aspirational goal. And when right across the street is an organization that has consistent vacancies and would hire the sorts of people that we hire for the airport, I was hoping we'd have some conversation about full health care coverage as kind of the thing that would make it a more attractive to stay here than walk across the street.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on item 5?
Did you get everybody got the health insurance change? So just in a nutshell, with the increase that we're under for 2025 is 3.79, 3.97%. Based on who's employed today, if all of those employees took the family coverage, which is very unlikely, if we did 100%, it would be $733,133. Now, granted, the aircraft rescue and firefighters are reimbursed by the airlines. If The airport authority paid 100% of the 2025 premiums for the current elections of these employees that are under the insurance now. It would increase the amount to $74,212 based on what we know today. Your decision is if you want to pick up 100% of the health insurance or leave it as is. That's your call.
Well, the lower number hits me is extremely modest. Obviously, if everybody went to 100%.
Yeah, which
That's a big
is gonna happen.
And Mr. Chairman, when we separated, moved away from city employees, didn't we match up to the health insurance benefits at that time? Or?
We did, and I haven't gotten an update from Mr. Reglinger on what the city is doing or proposing to do in 2025. I don't have that information.
I would kind of like to see what their changes are. You know, if we're going to continue to sort of mirror and parallel the city. The question I had is, what are we seeing in turnover now, and what are we sitting with open, advertised, and unfilled positions?
The one building attendant position was filled, correct? They're going through the background check.
Potential.
Potentially, yeah. So they have to go through the background check, get the drug test and stuff. So we still have 2 building attendant positions for the 2025 budget to fill. On the air side, I think we're full over there right now. Yeah. So we're
Are we
full.
seeing 20%, 30%, 10% turnover?
On the building side, probably 20%. As they come in, especially part
That
time.
been increasing? Or
No, staying the same.
that's,
The airfield side, we may lose one a year and then have to refill that position, but not a lot of turnover. No.
and you're looking for approval of this budget today, but we don't know what the cost of living comparison to is with the city at this point.
It's either 3.5 to 4.5 is what we heard yesterday, but you would approve it subject to matching whatever the city has. And TANA has the numbers, whether it's 3.5% or 4.5%. And then your decision on the health insurance, if you want to keep it the same as what the employees have been paying in for the last few years, or go to 100%. And then the $25 per month longevity match with the city. So that's your.
Do we have any satisfaction measurements? Everybody's happy with the new coverage, unhappy?
The health insurance? Yeah. So we've had no complaints from the employees on that. What Pro Resources puts together, in addition to the Blue Cross Blue Shield policy that we received through Brown and Brown and North Dakota Public Health Insurance Trust. We haven't heard anything negative, nothing.
And when do we have to have this budget approved by?
We normally have it done by now, so this is the latest that we've gone. So
We don't have any statutory requirements, just prior to year end.
prior to year end, but we prefer to get it passed sooner than later.
Mr. Chairman, I guess I kind of feel a little bit like, and I apologize for not being up to speed, but if we're setting a new budget and we're changing, we should have reasons why we're changing it. If we're not getting the positions filled, if we have a lot of turnover, if those things, then that should be part of this budget as it relates to COLA, as it relates to those different things. I feel a little bit like waiting for the city to do its COLA and then we copy theirs is kind of the opposite of what we're trying to do. We're trying to set our own airport authority direction of what we're doing, not just copy the city for what they're doing. So I think we can prove it, but then we don't address these issues that ought to be discussed. And so I think I would just as soon not vote on this today, but to take those issues we've identified and get the information, the background that we need, and not pass our budget subject to we'll do whatever the city does in a COLA.
Oh, do you want separate COLA? Is that what you want to do?
Yeah, I mean, we
COLA
can,
now?
I think we should do that. We should set the salaries. We should set the COLA. But to do that as a board position, I'm like, well, if we have a 30% turnover and we're way below what we need to be, that would tell me we need to be more generous in those areas. If we're saying we haven't had any turnover in the last few years, we don't see any, then you know, I mean, that's kind of a discussion for us, and likewise with the health insurance. But for just, without having facts, it's hard just to say.
The mechanic position, and the board did do an adjustment there some time ago. The mechanic position has turned over a few times, and that's really, really difficult to fill because we have specialized equipment. And then finding building attendants, custodians, janitors, what we call them building attendants here, is very difficult. The ones that have been here for many years, that's fine, but to fill those new positions has been, I don't know how long we've been going now, for 6 months to try and find someone.
So are we raising that entry level salary for janitors in this budget?
It's there, but the cost of living with change in benefits would certainly help.
So what's the board's wishes? You want to hold up on the approval, or you want to approve the budget as amended?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Burke, would it help if we had a comparison of the county, the diversion, the city, you know, so that we're aligning, or we know what the parity is, so as far as budget or COLAs and different benefits. If we could maybe get that information, then it could help us make the decision.
I can tell you that the county's is at 2.5%, and that came from the employees, not the county commissioner.
Their salary increase or COLA?
The COLA came from the department heads and the employees. That wasn't set by the commit. I mean, it's set by the commission now, but at the request of the employees is at 2.5. Commissioner Strang, do you have a feeling what the city is going to do?
I don't. What day is it? It's all right. It's probably going to be at least 3.5. You know, if our goal is to get it up to 4.5. If we can squeak that out, some savings, but it'll be at least 3.5. I would expect.
3%
has a comment.
Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I just had a couple of questions. Maybe now wasn't the right place to ask, so I apologize for not knowing all these details. But Sean, when is open enrollment in the year?
Yeah, it's not till November. It's when all of the city county does it, November. So
In November. So this would be effective like this November. So it would be for the full 2025 budget then, correct?
correct.
Okay. And so I was gonna say if you said that this is the latest the budget's been submitted, we could increase those line items in the budget up to 4.5, adjust the benefits and stuff in the line items in the budget and approve it, knowing that the expenses would be higher. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you're tied to it either. I mean, if we build 4.5% into the salaries and we only do 3.5% or 4%, that's okay. I mean, we'd just be coming in under budget. But we could build it in right away, and then no decisions would have to be final right now. But if some decisions were made in the next couple of months, we would know that we have that flexibility within the budget to go that high if needed or if wanted.
Mr. Chairman.
Well, if I understand, there's no one other than us that needs this budget for 2025, correct? It's for our own working purposes.
The city doesn't, we send a copy to the county as well.
But there's no requirement that this is in today or a month from now or 2 months from now.
Well, I know the city had to get their budget into the county by today, or
The mills.
the mills, yeah. It's supposed to, on the 10th of the month, but since the 10th was on a Saturday or whatever, it moves to this following Monday, so it would have been yesterday, I guess. That's it. Mills had to be certified.
Typically certify the mill levy to the city in June, of which they did. Jim sent the letter.
But I guess my point is there's no reason that we need to do this today or a month from now or whenever. I mean, this is our budget. It doesn't, there's no one else.
Looking for guidance. I mean, if you want to
Right.
approve it with guidance, we'll get some more information from Redlinger and what the city's doing as far as the employee-employer share of health insurance. I can have Pro Resources go out again and do another survey if you'd like before the next meeting. They did that last year. We can do
Yeah,
it
well, I
again.
think that might be helpful, just so we know what the other entities are doing for salary and benefits.
Okay.
And so we don't end in a situation where we're just passing this and all of a sudden we're into next year and losing a lot of employees.
Mr. Chairman, Paul has got a good point. I would make a motion to ask staff to prepare a comparison between similar entities, be it the county, the city, NDSU, and make recommendation based on that comparison. And we can consider the budget then.
That's a motion.
That's a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Roll call, please.
Rashadi.
Yes.
Berg.
Yes.
Cosgrove.
Yes.
Beckman.
Aye.
Caputin.
Okay. Anything further on item 5? With the city commission, yes, with the city commission 50% reduction in local support, can we continue construction if their actions impact state and federal funding?
I think, Mr. Chairman, we can pass on that one. I just would like to express everyone's support and help over the last week. And Sean, for all your effort, I think it reinforced the support of the airport in the community. So I was just really, yesterday, I think that was a good opportunity. And really, as I see, this is just, I mean, we've got a lot of work to do. We're going to need to go as a united front to the state and the feds to get all the money that we need. And so the more we can work with the city and those commissioners, I think it's going to be critical for us going forward. So, go ahead.
I know that the city got several calls from our state legislature and from the federal side on the issue of the mill levy.
Thanks to Commissioner Strand and Pepcorn and Turnberg for, reconsidering that, bringing that forward. And obviously the mayor was part of that, so I think we're in a really good spot. It's not, now's the time to move forward and let the past be the past.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner, Mr. Berg, I would just ask that I think we handled the whole process poorly from the start. We do have the memorandum of understanding. We do know what the city's looking for in that presentation. And I would ask the next cycle, which will come up next March, April, that we have a more concerted effort to put this information together. I think we caused a lot of our own problems during that process. And again, it was a situation where it was brought to this board saying, oh, we have to take action today to request 2 mills, although we don't have the information. The motion that started all of this was to ask for 2 mills if it was supported by the data. And then everything flowed downhill from there. And so I would just ask in this next cycle that be put on the agenda enough in advance so that there can be detailed discussions at this board.
Can I mention one more thing? And hopefully we'll have the new economic impact study done. And I think that will help us as well. Like, just so everybody sees how much the airport contributes to our community.
Okay, moving on then. Number 6, receive update from Teal Stroh Architects. You can continue.
Okay. So we got several things today with regards to you have in your packet GMP number 4R. About a little over $1 million. The majority of that, as you see in your packet, is the temporary parking lot. We had some additional deep foundations added. We spent 2.5 months every week on a call with the precaster discussing how to build it, and we ended up deciding for safety, for design reasons, and ease of erection. We added a couple of, I think 3 panel caps, 4. And so that's what, you see the deep foundation line, that's the piers and then concrete to pour over those. It'll be fun to show you some of these pictures, just can kind of see what goes on there. Plumbing was, again, during that process, structural engineer, we decided how we thought we could drain the parking ramp, and ended up deciding it wasn't a great move, and so we ended up adding some more drains to make it drain more efficiently. So that's the $79,000 item for plumbing. Electrical is basically the lighting for the temp parking lot. And then McGuff's general conditions and stuff. So the other item that's kind of weird is if you wanted to keep the parking lot there, and I know it would be more than this because Jeff would have to do retention ponds and all sorts of stuff, right? Basically, the earthwork people want their dirt back. So if we don't take it away, they don't get their dirt back. So it costs another $114,000. So that's kind of an interesting note. Anyway. So do you have any questions on GMP4?
Any questions? Motion to approve.
So move.
Motion been made and seconded. Roll call, please.
Yes.
Tony, Bird.
Aye.
Cosgrove.
Aye.
Beckman.
Aye.
Captain.
Aye.
Okay. The next thing would just be we are on schedule, doing really well with regards to the process of the project. I have explanations of what direction we're facing, but I don't think anybody would really care. But so in any case, these are the piles that are going into the ground. Flip to the next slide. So they drill these things in film full of a slurry, basically, and then pour a big concrete cap on top of them. And that's basically for each column support and supports. So they're really, I think we're doing well. It sounds like we're right on schedule. Next one. So depending on the load, there's, you can see there's an area, there's 3 pipes, 3 piles. In some of them, there's, 2 to 4. So it all depends on the loading of those things. Next slide, I think, is kind of an interesting
100 feet
one.
down. About 100 feet down.
Yeah, about 100, 150. Yeah. So that's what they look like. So they screw them in, get down to a certain point, weld another one on, screw them down, weld another one on, and screw them down. So very cool process. We're on schedule right now to, I talked to the precaster yesterday, and they were just telling me about some of their woes in terms of how to get some of their forms concrete out of forms and stuff, and so they got that figured out. But so we're still on track for bringing in precast panels October 14th. So we'll be seeing a lot of things change in a hurry. So that's kind of the report on the ramp. The other thing that we were asked to do was, and go to the rendering. So we have these perforated panels that we're putting into right now in the budget. These are actually columns, and so we're putting perforated panels in, though, partly for just an aesthetic thing, but also on the top floors we needed a railing, so we didn't want to show just some rails there, so we put it on there for that. Sean asked me to look at it from the standpoint of, we've been talking about this from day one, and talking to parking lot consultants. Sometimes I don't think they get it, because they're typically doing parking ramps in the middle of a bunch of buildings or downtown or something. We are doing it in the middle of a field. And so and this was one of the things we were been talking about on the north and the west side, actually putting these perforated panels in the other and those open. We still make our allowable or required ventilation requirements if we do that. If you want to go to the west side, to do that would be $808,929 to do that.
Mr. Chairman, Terry, do we have any idea what the snow loading inside would look like without
We
these?
really don't. We'd have to build a model and do put it in a wind tunnel, and we didn't have the budget for that. It is true that we can add these at any time, the way we have it designed.
I'm just trying to understand that I certainly don't want to go through a winter of experimentation and have the ramp full of snow.
Right.
But at the same time, we kind of need to see where it's piling up. I mean,
obviously, our prevailing winds out of the northwest, we get winds from all over directions, but this would probably mitigate the large majority of it. I have to tell you that the rendering is embellished so that you can see holes because they're probably like 6 inches around right now, and really they're not. They're about a 1/4 inch. So just so they would read as a perforated panel. So they would deter a lot of snow. And again, it's kind of us and then Canada is what we're between. So it's a lot of open area to go on into this ramp. So I guess it's something that the board we'd like you to consider. Maybe that's something we look at once we get pricing on Skyway or that kind of thing. So right now, even with GMP number 4, we're still under budget. So
Rick, I guess my question is, we have a number of ramps here in Fargo already. I guess the question would be, are anyone doing something similar, or what's their
that's
impact?
because if you go and look at the ramps, they're downtown. They're surrounded by buildings.
Well, but I
So
would
they
say
don't
that-
have that much issue with that.
But the one by Bell Bank, I mean, that's pretty much open to the north.
Yep.
I mean, I'm just saying that,
Yep.
whoever's,
A lot of
There ought to be
city
some
buildings to the
examples.
north of that, though. Again, that breaks up all that. You
Yeah,
have
promise.
nothing but a
They're all
field.
field.
It's just field.
Grand
Yeah.
Forks.
Yeah, so obviously, even the one at Bell, they would get less snow because of all the buildings north of them. So I guess the issue is like I said, when we originally talked about it, that was something we talked about. and we decided to kind of pull back because we wanted to make sure we did it in budget and stuff. And this kind of thing can be done easily at any time. I mean, we could pull the trigger when the thing's, 3/4 of the way up, even for that matter. So, depending on funding.
The one other aspect that we have to consider is without them, I mean, that's a lot of money to put them in there, but without them, we gotta remember, we have to remove snow removal of every floor. And with all the cars parked there, it's really gonna be tough for snow removal. But it is, what'd you say, about $1 million?
$808,000.
Yeah. Go
Mr.
ahead.
Chair. So Terry, in addition to snow, would that impact the wind coming in for like the passengers?
Wind and all that.
So it's gonna make it a more comfortable
It would.
experience
Oh, for
inside?
sure. Yeah.
It would.
Yeah.
All right.
Mr. Chair.
Dr. Rashani.
I think this is a high priority item, second only to the reserve lane for mass transit and Ubers and things. But the beauty is it's an easy add-on. So I would move that we consider this an add-on at the end of the project if the budget accommodates it after the reserve lane for on the, what is that, north side?
I second.
Is that a motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded.
Just a bit of information, and Terry, with the Roco ramp downtown, when they were, and time became an issue, but they had an option, if I recall, for the same cost to artistically render the mesh side on the west side of Roco. And time hit, and then people were fighting over the art. But that was an interesting concept to have it artistically embellished.
Very expensive.
Versus, and I was told the same price, but anyway, just a thought.
Even close.
Okay.
Yeah, not even close.
I know Minneapolis has it.
Yeah. It is really ridiculously expensive. It's super
really
cool
pretty.
though. I mean, it's like a dot matrix. Yeah. And honestly, the Roku is basically an enclosed ramp. So it really didn't, but yes, you see that in really big metropolitan areas. If you ever walk from gate G to C on that big monster walkway that they have at the south side of the Minneapolis airport and go over, you'll walk past a whole, must be 5 stories tall of people and stuff. It's super cool, but it's really expensive. We looked into that several times. So.
Rick.
I support this motion. I think when before I got on the board, I came out here and I've told the story before, but it was in March and I met a young couple that their car had been stuck for 3 days in the parking lot. And I'm like, if we're doing the ramp, one of the big things for the ramp is for people to come park and not have to worry about snow. And so again, I support the motion.
Just one thing, Joe just reminded me. So we have precast samples to view. I finally got the final ones done, and we actually McGuff actually put the screening material in there. So, and it's over by their job trailer, right? Over for the terminal, right? Yep. And so you can take a peek at it and see what that material looks like. It's nice.
And I'd encourage you all to go take a look at the construction site, both sites, terminal and there, without getting in the way of the construction. You have to stop by McGuff if they got time to show you around a little bit. I went through there a couple of weeks ago, and you don't see a whole lot, but it's impressive as to what they're doing. So, roll call vote, please.
Rashani.
Yes.
Berg.
Aye.
Cosgrove. Aye. Beckman.
Aye.
Aye.
Darren just brought up a great point. We're actually gonna get to experience what kind of snow will go in there because we
Building.
probably got the precast up. I want to say that at the end of January, So we'll probably have an idea of snowfall in September.
You're ordering a couple snowstorms?
Okay. Item 7, receive update from TLC. Well, wait a minute now. We've already had that. Yeah, item 7, receive update from Eden Hunt. There we go.
Hey,
And
hey, great to see you all. So yeah, on the other side of the fence where we have the terminal going in, we have a more exciting concrete, if you like structures. We have the concrete going in. We already had the aggregate piers. You saw that a few weeks ago when they were drilling those in and filling those in. So now they're putting in the strip footings and stem walls. And then looking at the end of August, probably the week of August 26th, they have scheduled right now to start for precast panels to start showing up. So you'll start seeing those being erected. So exciting stuff coming this fall for the terminal. And then as far as budget, we're still doing great on budget there. So nothing really to update there. Any questions on the progress and for the terminal? Okay. Then the other thing, baggage claim. We did meet with Paula yesterday just to walk through a little more details, walk through the actual space, and gather some more information and some ideas. We came up with some really good solutions for. We talked about some of the signage, storage, seating. So we're going to look at opportunities to put more seating down there, different arrangements. Some of the things that we talked about would be part of that signage coordination and wayfinding package that we're working on. All in all, it was a good discussion. Then we're also looking at in reference to the seating and having the double armrests. We did. Arconis is the seating manufacturer that we're working with, and they did come out with a line a couple months ago that has the double armrest seating. So we're working with them and coming up with a layout for the concourse to see what that cost would be, so you can make a comparison and make a decision if you want to go that route. Still plenty of time we're very early on. We're a year down the road from the addition being done, so that's more to come on that.
And I'm sure you're already there, but keeping an eye towards flexibility for rearranging, if in other words, not to commit to furniture that has to be structured one way, and it doesn't work 2 years from now, we can't move it, sort of thing.
Yeah, and that's a slippery slope because we don't want to fully commit and do all these poke throughs for power sources, and then we have to move them. On the same token, we do have to provide power for the chargers that are integral. So we try to do that selectively, especially in the concourse and in the waiting areas. But yeah, especially down here, the terrazzo on the ground floor, it's very disruptive to do that. So, wherever you put it, you're fully committed there. So yes.
Background music.
That's mine. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, guys.
You have a melodic voice.
I think that was all I had for now. So before we go into the concessions piece, we can show you the pictures. So. I know, and more to come. The pictures will become more exciting as we get further along in the project. But some people, like maybe Jeff Klein and John Scraper, might like these pictures. It's structural. It's concrete. Honestly, the really, really great work they're doing on this concrete. If you're familiar with pouring and stem walls, I mean they're straight, true, consistent. Like they're doing really good work out. See some of the insulation, some of the boxed in areas. Those are going to be the stoops to where you come outside. Those are where the doors are at. You can see that angled wall up there. That's going to be that prominent window area that you see in the rendering over there for over ticketing. Yeah, and then here you're seeing those openings are for I believe those are for the underground ductwork that's going to be going out, and then the big yellow temporary wall that is not permanent.
So the foundation subcontractor is Cambrud Foss, is that correct?
Yep.
Moorhead?
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, they're doing great work. We have Joe Jenny with TL Stroh in concert with Kelly Casey of Mead and Hunt, both working together working on like site visits, and we're participating in pre-install meetings to make sure that we're all in line and in agreement with the approach of how these how they're installed and what's the end product supposed to be like. Any questions on the construction progress foundations?
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
And at what point do we lose gate one? You know, because I know that we're going to lose gate one functionally for a while, which the airline concern, you know, just as far as our workflow. Do you know about what point that is in the construction?
You're sitting next to the guy that will, and I'm not going to directly hand it off to you, Joe, but it's going to be right around the end of when that addition is done. Okay. We have to disconnect the existing gate one and move that over. So that all has to be complete. That's a year out from now. Yeah.
Okay. So that will be, okay, that gives me an answer.
There'll be 8 other gates to use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so the other gates will be already in place.
They'll be open. Yeah, we'll have the addition, put the new gates in, and then
Then you'll start. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we're just.
Well, I was under the impression that we were going to be down to 4 gates for a while.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, we should be able to avoid that.
Okay.
That's a ways down the road.
Yeah.
We only got barely the footings in.
Yeah.
We're talking double arm. Okay. Okay, receive communication from Skydyne.
Mr. Chair, and Brandon.
Yeah.
Maybe after Dustin's done, we could have Gina just run through with the board really quick the things that you had talked about changing or doing with baggage claim, just so everybody else knows.
Okay.
Excuse me, what's going on?
Yesterday, Brandon said that we had met about baggage claim and
what?
the baggage claim and the cohesive style, and so Gina had grabbed some updates on that. But
All right. Skydyne.
Okay, good morning. Dustin with Skydyne. A short time ago, I was tasked with coming up with an option to help out with some of the budget differences in for the food and beverage concession area, and so I put a proposal together. I think you have a copy of it. Is everybody have a copy? By any chance? Yeah, so that has some of the details. Of course, there's more details than that, but there's kind of some of the bullet points of an option for us to contribute financially to the project, and so we have a proposal there for $1,080,000, and in exchange for a 10-year extension to our lease after everything is built out and such. So if anybody has any questions on that, I'm sure I can answer those.
Discussion? Questions?
Mr. Chairman, that's in between, design and everything. Where do we start trying to understand? We've got this much space. These are the options that we're talking about. Originally, we were talking about local, or just some bits and pieces I've heard are just franchises at this point.
We're still working through the actual brands. Our goal is to have a variety of local, a touch of national, maybe some regional. But ideally, we're going to have, I'm looking for local partners. And Paula has sent me a number of them, ideas, and I've got a few of those that I've been working with and talking to, and kind of got them in a holding pattern until I kind of get everything rounded up. And then and so there's a couple of local coffee companies. One's an ACDBE already, and one is a local, nicely run coffee program here in Fargo. Everybody would recognize, I don't want to get into the details of the names because I don't have anything officially inked with them yet. But my last time we talked, I think it was first quarter. I remember, Brandon, first quarter of this next year, or January, February, I wanted to have that kind of solidified. And by the end of the year, I'll have that solidified, ready to bring back to the group here for you to try to understand which ones we're trying to pick. So the coffee companies, we could have a choice of a couple. Which one would you rather see? I got these two programs. One's ACDBE, and one I think is a little nicer program, but one accomplishes one thing and one accomplishes another. So there's some great options there. Again, we want to have a little bit of a lot of a local flair. You come to the Fargo Airport, you want to have some Fargo brands, right? Coffee. There's a bagel place and some other things that were recommended, and so I'm looking into all those and bringing them back. So,
and the timeline for that
by the end of the year is what I'm hoping. And that's still, it's a little early because we've got 2 years before we actually open, and so at that point I'll name them, and hopefully they don't. Hopefully they're still in business in 2 years from now or something. Pretty reputable companies, so I doubt there'd be any issues. But so that's naming them too early. But I understand we want to get all the construction work done and all the design work done. So we're prepared to do that by the end of the year. So.
Rick, Mr. Chairman, and Dustin. So basically, you're the master lease, and then you would find different subtenants during the 10-year.
Well, we'd operate them. So what I do is I do licensing agreements. So I go to a local coffee shop, for instance, and it's still all of our staff that operates them. We use their name, their likeness, their policies, their procedures on their products, their recipes, and their guidance too. So they'll be involved, monthly and quarterly. They come through. They help us with training. So we want to do their product and their program exactly like they do it, whether it's downtown or West Fargo or wherever their retail stores.
We simply have one point of contact, and that's you.
Absolutely, yes.
So you're asking to submit a letter of intent for a 10-year extension, and you're going to provide $1,040,000 for your TIs. Is that kind of what you're suggesting?
It's mostly the food service equipment, the hoods, the cabinetry, right? All the stuff.
Mostly the kitchen equipment. The kitchen equipment came in at I think like $1.5 million or something like that. So this would help soften that impact.
So then part of that is if our agreement's terminated, then you depreciate that over 12 years, and that would be a buyout situation. Correct. Then how about the lease rate? How do you establish a lease rate?
That's our current rate that we're currently at. We have a food and beverage rate, and then we have an alcohol rate. It's commission on the sales that goes to the airport, and so that rate will stay the same.
So it's a percentage kind of.
Absolutely.
Not a per square foot rate.
No, it's a percentage of sales rate. Yeah, and it's a competitive rate. It's the same rate we do in Rapid City at the airport there. Sioux Falls has just got out of the same rate you've been on for quite a few years. They were 2% lower in both categories up until like 2 or 3 months ago. And so you're at a very competitive rate is what I'm trying to say. So.
I think it's 10% for food and 14% for alcohol.
10 and 12. 10 is that what it is? 10 and 14 or 12. Yeah.
So I mean, the performance of these vendors is important to us.
Absolutely. And for me, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, and having the brands that are, recognizable here in town is important. Having the local influence, the local training, and just the involvement always helps.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, go ahead.
Rick, or John?
I think we just renewed this contract for period certain, but I'm just curious, as we go now into purchasing equipment, what's that do with our purchasing policy? Is this a bid situation or a contract extension, or what are we doing here?
It's all part of the bids that they receive in their GMPs.
But the contract with Skydyne would not be.
No, that's not part of theirs, but all of the equipment would be acquired through McGough's GMP process, and they would reimburse through them, not us.
Right, I'm just saying, are we required in that to do another request for proposals? Are there, and we're confident there?
So that's part of the agreement with McGough, and then would transfer there, so that's set. I mean, that's set out in that contract.
Okay, go ahead.
Could we get a copy of the contract that we have currently? Just to clarify, if the lease space and the rent and the commissions and.
Absolutely. Current, and Joan has a copy of that, right, Joan? And the current lease, I believe, gets us through the construction of the airport.
Through 2027.
I know we're going to be in a temporary situation here shortly, probably in the next 9 months or so. They're going to tear everything out, and we're going to basically working off of folding tables in the lobby, and out of a closet in the basement somewhere for the kitchen. And so we'll be in a temporary situation, and that's where our current agreement is now to get us through the 2 years of construction, basically.
And so, what do you think about the implementation of the food delivery apps? And do you think that can? I mean, I think that would be nice long term, but it might help with during the construction phase if people don't have an actual.
Yeah,
but you could be preparing the food somewhere else and delivering it.
Yeah, no, there's if you're working with a franchise, obviously they have apps built into most of their programs. If you're not, we do have QR code ordering. You can put a QR code. I can put it in the parking lot. I can put it before ticketing. We could do signs. There's all sorts of things we could do with that, where they could pre-order and be ready by the time they get to their pickup area.
So then
there's some options there.
So you keep making money, we keep making money, and our passengers keep getting fed.
Yeah, well, I'm a little concerned. Obviously, for the next 2 years, working in a temporary situation. I know we have some verbiage in the lease that says if sales drop below a certain point, then so I'm assuming they're going to drop. I mean, we're going to be without it. We're going to be without kitchen space. We're going to be without a lot of things. So I, in good faith, we just say, we'll work it out. If it drops, I'll come to Sean. But I think we had like a 50% or something threshold. If it drops 50%, we'll have a discussion or something, if I remember right. So it's been a while.
John?
Sure. Who holds the liquor license?
The airport.
It's the airport's liquor license, and they're assigned.
It's assigned to the airport by ordinance.
Okay, and that's a specialty, I think.
Yeah, it is, just like the one at the National Guard. There's a couple of them that are signed by ordinance. The airport's one of them, and the National Guard's the other one.
So if we needed changes, we could go and ask the city for changes to that liquor license, I would imagine.
We've had quite a few different conversations over the years with Steve Sprague on that, and about doing a stadium type setting.
Well, they created the Red Hawks, the stadium license, the Fargo Dome license.
He didn't see any appetite for that, and the reason is because it's hard liquor versus beer and wine.
Red Hawks is full.
Yeah.
So I think as long as the airport owns it, if we have modifications that we need, we should approach Liquor Control Board and make the case for that.
And I don't know, I mean, they bear the onus of any violations of it, and the insistence of the city, and rightly so, for the bartender to observe who's consuming the alcohol But yet in the stadium situation, it's like you buy it and away you go. So I think there's an onus for us to maybe work with the city to try and change it to a stadium license where you could take your beer or your wine to your gate that you consume, but I don't know. It's a slippery slope.
Approaching and asking.
It's a slippery slope. But
So Bismarck does it, and we could always talk to them and see how they're
it's
managing
just
it.
a change in the ordinance.
Right. And so, John, Mr. Strand could be a good connection with the city to help navigate that and see if it's a possibility for us. Okay.
Yeah, and that's the other part of it. A lot of pushback from the carriers too. They deal with a number of folks on a couple airlines here that.
Paula, you said Bismarck already is doing it.
Bismarck's already doing it, just off the top of my head, but there's many, many airports across the country that are, or that do.
You see, one of the recommendations I had in our discussions yesterday was a couple of airports I've been to, they have what they call a red cup program. So it's for beer or wine, but it's like a red solo cup, but it has a special imprint on it that says it must be 21. It has this very kind of yellow and kind of like a caution flag. But they tap beer or do a wine in those, and then they're able to carry those to the terminal. And it's very identifiable, and you can't tip it upside. You can't hide it to get it into the airplane because it's like a keg glass, right? So you can't put the lid back on it, sneak it into the airplane. If somebody hands it off to somebody, it's very identifiable. So that'd be an option maybe to think about. When we talk to the city, and Paul asked me to be a part of that conversation. I have no problem on that. So make some calls too.
The TSA doesn't stop the minis that come through the checkpoint. On some of the Allegiant flights, there's people that consume their own minis at the gate, and you'll find them in the trash. So we really can't control that. They're consuming alcohol that they've brought in, but it's allowed through the checkpoint. It's an issue that I don't know how you would solve.
Are you saying this red cup program, they can buy it and then wander around the terminal building?
Yes.
I think I like that.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
So one more comment on the food. I'm hoping that as we navigate or get closer to determining what vendors will be in the airport, because we're limited, we're a smaller airport, we don't have the ability like Minneapolis to have, Dunkin' Donuts and Cinnabon and Starbucks and, a taco place. So I hope that you're very deliberate in choosing vendors that will serve multiple food choices. So like they could serve, so like I'm concerned with, say, a Cinnabon that has a very time specific type of food item that's, sticky to clean up. And, if we have a vendor that can do multiple, like a breakfast and a lunch type of item.
That's very important to make sure we cover all the day parts, especially the one that's right up front and center. It has to match. It has to be a breakfast, lunch, dinner program.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to Cinnabon, it only takes like 3 or 4 feet, so it's very small, blown out Cinnabon, but it has all the products that you'd expect at a Cinnabon. But it's a really small footprint. It's connected to whatever else we have in front, and then there'll be a bar. Concept there with the burgers and salads and sandwiches, other appetizers. So it has to be a well-rounded, covering all the day parts for sure. So it's hard to pick any one brand that only is just one day part. If you pick a brand that's only breakfast lunch, that space is too valuable to have just a breakfast place. It really has to cover more than just that.
Right.
So absolutely. Yeah.
So like I know Starbucks isn't on the table, but like a Starbucks, you can get the breakfast sandwich and you can get a lunch sandwich. So it serves like two time frames so you've to utilize the space better.
So what are your wishes? You want to make a motion for a lease extension, or do you want to just receive and file? What are your wishes?
I think we should move forward with letter of intent. I would move we move forward with letter of intent.
Are you voting for making the motion to extend the lease?
But I think
10 years?
I think the understanding is that first there'd be a letter of intent that would have all the terms. One of those terms would be a 10-year extension. So I think we don't want to approve the lease until we see the letter of intent. I mean, right?
And good faith would take our last lease, we had a lot of the bullet points.
Just increase the percentages a few and let it roll.
Yeah, so as operating, in good faith to come up with the letter of intent and a new statement with Sean and Joan. And
maybe you don't need a motion for that, just something to do.
Mr. Chairman, Rick, I think we should do a motion and ask for staff recommendation on the letter of intent as they review.
So I'd move that we would take the next step and receive a letter of intent from Skydyne and then have it recommendation from staff.
Okay, and motion been made and seconded. Roll call, please.
Rashani, yes.
Aye.
Osric.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you very much.
Thanks for coming up from.
Now, item
Dustin,
number 8,
appreciate it.
receive update regarding proposed SGA hangar and site plan.
Mr. Arneson is here and Mr. Dietrich. Based on the board's discussion at the last meeting, trying to maximize the use of the space there, and Jeff Klein assisted with putting together some site plans for that. We did engage the Air National Guard in terms of any concerns that they would have as far as setback from their lease line and so forth. So Jeff, if you want to take it from there.
Yeah, so Mead and Hunt had been assisting Dell and Dietrich Construction here laying out some various options for the site. Let me see.
I can't get it out.
They were in your packet. I don't know if you can see those.
This should be in all of our packets. Kind of helps give a good perspective.
Yeah.
Label 8.
Actually, the site it extends further up here, but this is down to the South GA. It's on the north side of Dakota Air Park. So basically on
That's not a very good site plan. You have one just to the south?
Well, there's a larger. This is just a zoomed in image
here.
So it's just kind of sandwiched between the military taxiway Bravo, and Dakota airports. It's set in that that area. We had put 2 site options, I guess, just for general development in the area. One is based on all of the hangars running north and south, and then they would open up to Bravo taxiway. With that option, Dietrich and Arneson would, build a condo hangar, 100 by 300, with 3 individual hangars laid out that you can see there. And then with that option, that there'd still be space on the north end of that for up to like a 120 by 120 foot future hangar. And then on the east side of that, there's a stormwater detention pond, and basically that would serve as a buffer that the Air Guard wanted from their fence. Benefits of this are it's just obviously it allows Nick and Del to build a hangar. It allows future space. There's not as much future space as the second option I'll present here in a second, and then it provides land-side access to all of these hangars. Now, for discussion purposes, to think this through, there's also site number 2 here, which basically is a east-west orientation, which is consistent with ALP. However, one of the negatives in this is like the future hangars being north facing, and obviously in our environment, north facing hangars are not desired, by people just because of, pavement doesn't get sun in the wintertime, so there's a lot of snow and ice buildup. And then, the stormwater detention pond starts to encroach on the air guard base. And this, the pond that's shown on here is just, schematic. It can change shape, depending on how the layout is.
For domestic vehicles, congestion, crowding waiver.
Correct. Yeah. On the future hangars that we're showing on the south side there, the vehicles can access the site from the air side, so they don't have to go through security. On the north side, they would have to go through security to get up to their new hangar. So that's where we're at. I mean, like I said, before the meeting, Rick, there's pros and cons to each. The site 2 maximizes the lots, but the lots that are gained are less desirable than the first.
Bring that up, Karen.
I don't have it on this.
And Mr. Chairman, we're just getting an update on the development, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So my only question, and again, we've got poor visuals here, but if my concern is, if you look at this in our map, we've got a huge piece of ground here. And we have to have our airport authority hat on. And so my concern is, how can we maximize hangar space there? I'd like to say, before I go down that road, I think the developer and Dietrich are awesome. They're the right people we want developing here at the airport. But I'm just like, when I look at this, and I'm like, we've got this holding pond, and what's our relationship with air guard? Could the holding pond be moved more, south of the existing hangar there? I mean, that land is really not usable for hangar space. And I think, we've talked about this, Jeff, before, and I think now is probably the time to look at, what's our master plan for the airport? I think that was done 15 years ago. I think we need to really start thinking about that as we're going forward. Because my goal would be that we identify some hangar space for both business use and GA, and we don't have to go through this whole process. We can say, here's the space for the hangar. Someone can come, and we've already done the site work, and so we know exactly what that lot is, more like a residential deal. So that's my only request here, thought, is if we can figure out a way to accommodate the developer, but also leave enough space so we can maximize a future hangar user.
This second option with the east-west orientation is a maximized space given the setback requirements from the military taxiway and taxiway Bravo. It just becomes a question of where that stormwater pond can fit.
Yeah, if the pond moved to the south, we could add more hangars. This is not a discussion as a board meeting, just kind of talking about that.
We spent a couple hours just to get to these two options here and ruled out C2 and with here, I don't know. It does show for growth for another hangar up here, but getting access, public access to those hangars really makes it difficult to do anything different.
These things aren't easy. It takes some work. We have limited space at the airport. We have limited opportunities where someone can have access on the street side that would open up from the hangar side as well.
They're expecting approval today of this site plan here. What I would recommend is C1, so that they can get started with their process to get their permits and get the foundation in the ground this fall. That's what they're looking for today. One thing that we've talked about with both Dell and with Nick is we don't know what they're going to run into when they start digging out there. There's old guard hangars there. We don't know what the ground is going to hold once they start digging the storm sewer and the foundation. So those are things that we'll have to be aware of. But we're looking for approval today of the site plan that we put together, which we believe has maximized the use of that space.
And I think one of the things, Rick, too, is we can have 6 lots here, so to speak. I keep bringing up the north-facing hangars. A lot of times, what we see on airports when they have those empty lots that end up with north-facing hangars, they go unused because no one wants to build there for that reason. So,
Well, I mean,
it's
we do
the
have
trade-off of maximizing space and having less ideal locations versus fewer spaces, more ideal, more higher desirable locations for people to come in and develop.
But we do have hangars facing the north now.
Yeah.
And I don't disagree that that's not good, but I still think that if we had the opportunity, I mean, we make money off renting hangars.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I misunderstood. This is not just an update. You're looking for approval. And this is the best we can do from your opinion, Sean.
So we've looked at it. We sat here for 2 hours last week or the week before and went through all different iterations, took into consideration the guard's desire for setback.
It just seems to me that this is a huge site, and if we didn't have to have that holding pond there would be opportunities to create more hangars. Even with this plan having hangars along the north side, maybe 3 hangars there that would access that other. Just none of these sites show the space like it should.
It's possible to show an additional hangar to the east of that one there. It's just a matter of the public.
What this is this is this whole square right here. And it's kind of it's a corner of 2 hangars there, or 2 runners. Yeah, it's this whole piece right here, which
There's not a holding pond there right now, is there?
No,
What's the purpose of having one?
it's required by the city. When you disturb more than an acre property, you have to have a detention pond.
John?
And I will say the detention pond will be a challenge because the storm sewer up there is shallow. It's flat. The drainage in there is very poor.
kind of the point is this area back here is never going to be utilized. Right there.
Not for, well, there could be a building there, but it probably more likely would be parking.
Yeah, no one would put a building there because it's not a hangar or anything like that. I would just say that if you move that holding pond to the south, I think you would get more space in that area as well. I don't know if that was ever considered.
Is there an option for underground holding?
Certainly an option. I just don't know until we dig into it if it'll work.
Well, yeah, they're always expensive, but again, just looking at this from the standpoint of it creates more leasable land for the airport. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
No,
Couldn't build a hangar there anyway.
I think you can do underground.
Well, you can. That's obviously more expensive. You do a lot more to avoid that if you can. But
Yeah, you can have a parking lot. So one thing to keep in mind, as I mentioned before, we don't know what they're gonna find when they start digging out there. If there's contamination, remnants from guard projects, we don't know. The other thing is the tenant's responsible, or the building owner is gonna be responsible for the concrete 50 feet out from the threshold of the door, the width of the hangar. We're responsible from the concrete from that point out to the taxiway. Just to keep that in mind.
well, those again, Mr. Chairman, I think those are a couple things that concern me. We're putting the concrete in. We're just serving 3 hangars. So I mean, and I think we should pay for that concrete. That again, that's my only question. I guess my issue is, my question is this: if we delay this, does that hurt you from the construction time?
We only have so much time to get that foundation in this fall if we want to, and that's Marcus's attention. And we need to keep moving to make that happen. Well, the drawings aren't fantastic, but they're preliminary, and we did spend a lot of time putting this together with the best we could, the airport's thoughts in mind, distances from taxiways and whatnot. We did leave as much room as we could on the north side of C1, I believe is labeled on that page, for somebody else to do another hangar there. But
is this space here proposed for another hangar? Or
No, that would be concrete.
that's just all concrete.
The 120 by 120 meter footprint could be
So
deeper.
it seems to me the best
Really could be
utilization of
wider.
the space would be
120,
that
but
one.
it certainly could be deeper, and picking airplanes out of a deep hangar's got
So it's
problems
just
too, but
Like here, we can drive here.
could be a larger hangar there.
This hangar,
Yeah.
get vehicles in this hangar. It's a challenge, and we gotta.
Yeah, you gotta be,
Taxiway a long ways, so we're worried that
Standards.
this was to maximize building of land policy. We're not sure if we can even make that happen.
yeah.
If that makes sense.
What are your wishes?
I was just gonna say, Mr. Chair, Rick, is there a way that you could meet with Dietrich and Mead and Hunt before the next meeting so that you're more comfortable with the layout?
No, I mean, I'd be happy to. I don't want to delay this. I mean, you want to get this done. I'm just like, there's a few things that I think we ought to look at. So, I don't know.
Well, do you want to delay this and have you work with these gentlemen
When's our next
Find out.
meeting? 2 weeks?
in 2 weeks?
I'd be happy to do that.
Okay? Is there a motion to delay this for 2 weeks and have Mr. Berg work with Mead and Hunt and this gentleman bring it back for a vote in 2 weeks?
Mr.
Is that satisfactory or?
Mr. Chair, is there a way that we could vote, like if you met with Dietrich and Jeff and staff and decided prior to the 2 weeks, could we do a vote approval like via email just so that we can speed up
I
the
don't really want
process?
that pressure on me.
Okay,
Bring it
all right,
back.
okay.
I mean, I think if the board feels they want to approve it, they can approve it, but if that, I guess the question is that a barrier? Is 2 weeks a barrier? Or can we work around that?
Well, it doesn't help, but would it be possible to, it's just an idea, but can you make a motion on a deferred submittal? On acceptance of further
Motion on what?
conversation? Can we make a motion on C1 today on a deferred submittal that we exhaust our discussions and maybe Rick gets an opportunity to realize that maybe we have found the best option here?
Mr. Chairman, the agenda item is to receive an update. Yeah, and we're jumping from receive an update to final site approval. And I just think, again, in managing our agendas, we always find ourselves in these situations, but we need a decision right now today. And so from receive an update to final site, it's to me not good.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, is there a motion on the floor to delay this for 2 weeks and have Rick work with Mead and Hunt? And then come back in 2 weeks for a plan. That's the motion, right?
I mean, I'd be
Is
willing.
there a second?
Who made the motion?
Yeah, who made the I think Rick did.
Paula,
Or
okay,
Paula?
sure.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay.
Mr. Chair?
That-
Could we go back to number 7 where it was discussed about baggage claim? Remember, we were gonna do that right after Dustin was done speaking?
To go back to number 7
To
for what?
discuss the baggage claim rendering, I know that Gina had some great ideas and could give a quick update after yesterday's discussion. It was on the last meeting we had, there was a motion to have an update on baggage claims that passed.
Didn't we already do that?
Gina is our lead designer, she's right here. They came up, Brandon and Gina came up with some updates that I thought maybe the rest of the board would be interested in since it was a motion at the last meeting.
Go ahead.
We don't have the rendering. It was the rendering that was provided at the last board meeting that we'll be referencing. But what Gina's going to go through today is just a summary of what we discussed yesterday.
Yeah, just briefly, just so the board's updated, since I had the luxury, but nobody
Yeah.
else did. So thank you.
So we walked through the baggage claim space yesterday with Paul here. Okay, I'm trying. Okay. So, and we came up with some changes, some updates that we're gonna do. The first one was we're going to install planters, the same planters that we're using in the terminal. We're going to carry those through downstairs and install them at the baggage carousels. And then take the plants that are down there and plant them in those planters to give a cohesive look through the area. Because right now we have them spotted in different areas. One of the biggest thing is we're going to take the columns and we're going to square them off and clad them in wood, as opposed to the round columns now that are in the column wrap.
We're getting pricing for that.
Right.
These
Right.
things we're looking at to get pricing first.
The 3 columns that are adjacent to the staircase, we're going to incorporate those as a wall, as opposed to keeping them the 3 individual columns. And then on the side towards the staircase, we're going to use that for storage for the luggage carts. We'll move those over there. I'm going through my notes here. We talked about putting a higher base on those wood columns because they do get hit and there is damage. Dan was with us yesterday too. We covered that. The neon sign, it's at the end on the wall. We talked about updating that. It's out of date as far as where everything is in the area. So we discussed having that sign updated. We also discussed lighting at each baggage claim to do a square LED above the seating area to distinguish the separate baggage claim areas. We discussed clear channel and murals on the back wall. Originally there were murals there, now there's a screen. So we were going to have during our amenity discussion with Clear Channel, discuss what our options could be for that. We also discussed in the proposed drawing and our proposed design, we have monitors at each column to incorporate for each column, like the United, their information in those monitors as opposed to having freestanding signs everywhere just to clean up the space again. We discussed putting numbers on the doors, on the exterior doors, so you know when you're picking someone up, you're 1, 2, or 3. We also discussed expanding the seating inside the baggage claim area, incorporating maybe some more soft seating, and then also looking at exterior seating. We only have a few benches out there right now, but to expand that. We discussed doing a Hector International signage at the meter and greeter area, and Paula supplied me with an inspiration picture from the Williston Airport. Then I have wine and coffee bar. That's a great idea. That's it. Brandon or Paula?
Thank you, Gina. I appreciate it. I think everybody's.
Mr. Chairman, just one question. Brandon, baggage claim is one of our problem areas. The people that have complaints are we comfortable? We have enough space in the baggage area to accommodate any innovations that may be coming and to rapidly move bags from airplanes to customers. We have all sorts of reasons why it doesn't happen on time. But have we allowed ourselves enough room to grow, and are we comfortable with that?
Yeah, yes, 100%. There's plenty of room in that space, and we explored it to the recommendations of what the FAA recommends for baggage claim space. We're above and beyond that. So, yeah, we feel very comfortable with the space we have.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gina.
Okay, thank you. Number 9, continued discussion regarding preliminary site options for a possible hotel. Tom Shaw.
Good morning. I was here a couple weeks ago and talked about a little bit about this. I just want to go over to recap a couple things and then provide some updates. One, I know a lot of the board members went down to Sioux Falls and looked at the hotel there. Everything that you'll see for size on the illustrations on here are all predicated exactly on that building. So we took that. A couple things I want to overemphasize again is when we look at putting anything on the airport, we have to look at, like when you airspace things, we take a lot of that for granted. What's actually looked at that process is they're looking at how does it affect the approach and departure surface of each runway. We look at how it affects the navigational aids. We look at how it affects the radar. We look at how it affects the air traffic controller's ability to see the airfield. We took cursory reviews of all this for those hotels and where they would fit and different things. And at this time, with information and correlating to other development on the airport, we think we're in good shape. At the end of the day, the FAA is the ultimate arbitrator of that. They decide, and they sometimes come up with unique ideas that we have not seen before. So I make no promises, is what I'm nicely still telling you, but we're pretty comfortable we can go forward with that. I'm going to jump through the next one, Darren. Try to keep it short as possible.
Is it helpful to be able to point at Sioux Falls as the model?
It's not, because the radars are in different locations, the towers are different locations, tower heights, the localizers and all that. And for a lot of you don't realize, in my prior life, I used to work on nav aids and used to work for the FAA, so I'm familiar with a lot of what they look at. So it doesn't really help. We talked last time about 3 locations. I realized last time everybody was not excited about alternative C, but I want to leave it out because it is still a viable option. I'm not recommending it. We'll flip through these very quickly. So again, on the bottom right corner, you'll see the Sioux Falls Airport. On the bottom picture, that hotel is the size of what's shown on the screen there. Next page. We did, as I said, we looked at the air traffic control tower, the radar, the communication facilities. Go ahead, Darren. We looked at approach plates, IFR procedures. This is just some of the things on the left are what you would see if you were looking at the top one is from the radar. And the reason I bring up the radar is this was an interesting one for me when the parking garage went up. Pretty fine line. Radars are pretty shoot a pulse of power out. Pretty fine line where they'd like to see things on the ground. We're about at the top of that list as far as hitting points that they would be concerned about. So we went much higher in hotels. I think we'd have a concern. I'll give you some details on that height a little bit later. The ability on the bottom left is actually kind of what you would expect to see if you were sitting in the air traffic control tower and looking over to the apron. You'll see that hotel, which is the closest one to affect the air traffic controllers, is not a problem at all. You can go to the next one. So we're going to walk through these sites. And this is Site 8. This is actually what I believe is the most viable. And this is as you're coming into the airport. This is on the right side, you'd have a hotel. There would be a connecting walkway into the terminal. That's approximately 250 feet. What that actually does, and I'm going to walk up here a little bit, is it provides you a couple of different things. One, it allows you that walkway. I have revamped a little bit of the parking that would allow you to have employee parking over there that would also be using that same walkway. Parking the administrative door and up to the 3rd floor there. You have a little area in the middle there, and we were looking at, our architectural team was criticizing me for, we have this space, what is it being used for? One of the things a lot of airports have is dog runs and different things like that. So this actually allows you an area that you could go in and have a little dog run. You could have a little bit of a park area there. So if you're at the hotel, you could walk in there. So if you get there early, it's one of those things that you have a little bit of green space that you can utilize for those items. And the only concern is it would be a little bit concerned with snow removal. So one of the things to consider, this allows you, you're coming in, a little area for the hotel drop-off. We talked to the people that run the Sioux Falls Airport. They're very interested in what you are holding here or doing here because they'd like to see some expansion. They're considering other airports in the area as well. We talked a little bit about how their airport hotels run. For the most part, what they're seeing, and this is a little bit we talked about before, is you would come in, you'd park, and let's say you're coming in from Jamestown. You may get into town, you may go check into the hotel, run out, go get a nice meal, may do some shopping, come back, go into the parking lot, and go to the hotel, and the next morning fly out. That's how they see it operating in Sioux Falls. Talk to them a little bit about the connecting distance of 250 feet. And it was interesting when we first started talking, they go, oh my gosh, that's too far. And I said, well, in Sioux Falls, they said, correct me if I'm wrong. We started walking down the dimension. They're like, oh, yeah, we're not that far apart. We're good. And as we walked through that, they were actually pretty comfortable with that and how that was laid out. So we did look at all those. Those are the key things on that one. As we look at this, the layout, and you can't see it on here, to the right, though, is additional parking. There is some ability, if we wanted to look at expanding parking that could be just hotel parking. There may be an alternative revenue source that is a parking lot that works with both of those. It's one of those things that you get into this, it could be an alternative to increase revenue as well as provide parking. I'm going to go to the next slide here. This is the one on the west side, and I think this is where people were more favorable last time we talked about it. The concern I have is the airport authority is going through great lengths to minimize the impact of what I would say our northern climate by having parking close to the airport, covered walkways connecting. With this location, it's great for the hotel, but your rental car ready lot is now going to have to be moved out further. And that becomes a little bit of a concern. One, we do some reconfiguration of roadways, but rental cars is a huge revenue on the airport. I'm not sure it's as viable. Also, when you look at this, we have to keep enough distance for future expansion. It's highly likely that you will need a fourth baggage carousel in our lifetime. So we want to make sure we leave that space available there. We also have the discussions that have gone on for years about an FIS facility. So we need to keep some level of gap there. So that's one of those things, that space size there is also an issue. But we have it spaced right now. We think we can fit an FIS in there. We can fit that fourth baggage carousel, but that's why that gap is there as well. It's interesting enough when you talk about walking space. If you think about, you're going to go check in the morning. If you walk from this side, you got to walk all the way past all your baggage carousels and everything. So that distance is actually further walking this way than it is the other side. Even so, the illusion is it's closer to the terminal, but it's not closer to where you're walking. So that was that site. If you want to jump to the next one. This is the one I talked with Terry and stuff, and there is a walkway corridor through the middle. I don't think any hotel owner is going to want to be there because you're kind of buried in the middle of a sea of cars. But this is a viable option. There is a walkway underneath the terminal, or underneath the parking garage, excuse me, that you walk through that. You could go up and do the walkway across. So it is viable. I'm not recommending it. At the end of the day, you can jump to the next slide. We looked at all three of these, and from our perspective, our recommendation for consideration would be alternative A, that is on the right side. And one of the things I guess I would have the board consider is preserving that space for this action. And why I recommend that is in your plans for the terminal layout as it sits today, you have some revamping of parking all through that area that has not been started yet. What I would recommend is we preserve this space. We drop and work together to put together a site contract to just reach out to proposed contractors, relay out the parking area, and reconfigure that would allow a viable hotel in that location. One of the things the Sioux Falls people that ran their hotel mentioned, they wanted room to expand. Sioux Falls, and I've talked to the director there as well, they're like, yeah, that land is really valuable. We're not sure we're interested in expanding. This site right here, you'll see right here, you can expand further down to the south. So this expansion capability is baked into it. In addition to one of the things I want to look at is if we went out and just reached out and met with a lot of different possible people that are willing to propose. This hotel is a micro rooms. So the width of this, if you went to a standard size room, could be a little wider. If it is, we want to make sure the roadway on the right can accommodate that. I hate to tear out the nice trees we have along that entrance. I'd rather push the hotel over. We can move those roads when we're doing this reconfiguration at minimal cost increase. So this is kind of at the end of the day where we ended up. Darren, you want to give me the next slide? Where we end up, is there any questions? I know I threw a lot at you very quickly. Again, my recommendation is that the airport authority put together, and we can put together a task to put together this site plan in more detail, hold some meetings with people that are interested in maybe proposing on an RFP, if you guys are still interested in moving forward with hotels. And that way we could find out their hotel width. One of the things that was interesting talking with the hotel people, they said height-wise, they said anything over 4 stories creates all kinds of other problems for us, so we're not going higher. We just want to go bigger. That length helps us on that. So I think we have a good location set up. Questions for you all?
How many rooms?
Sioux Falls, I believe, has 72.
Okay.
They wanted more in Sioux Falls. This is unknown to me because I was involved in Sioux Falls, and they said we wanted more. Sioux Falls wouldn't give us any. Sioux Falls, I know, has a lot of land constraints because we're also part of the planning down there. They're pretty tight. This alternative, I would think they'd come in, and this would be part of an RFP, is how many do they want to put in. But I think that's one of the things we want to leave as much versatility and flexibility to react to what a developer would like and what they think is best for their business model.
In your scenario where you'd come drop off, go out to dinner, come back, where is the flyer going to park while they're gone?
They park in a traditional airport parking lot. So whether they want to do the parking garage, anything, that's how Sioux Falls works as well. Now, there is on that one option, there's space on the east side that it's conceivable that you could go in and as part of your hotel thing, you get a parking pass and you pay $25 a day and you go out. So there is some options there to create, like I said, some flexibility. Airports always seem like they're looking for parking, so that may be a cheap ground surface parking lot expansion option.
And someone could park in the deck, go into the hotel, never go past TSA. Go into the lobby of the airport and then get to the hotel.
Yep.
It's the middle of February, so I'm just gonna get.
Oh yeah. You're gonna want. If you're coming in, you want to be. You'd go in the parking garage, walk across, come down through the terminal, and out into the hotel.
Say, Tom, it's Rich. I'm asking a couple questions, not construction related at all. I spent 4.5 years as director of development over at TMI Hospitality, and 2 questions. One is, who is the franchisee on what flag is it? Who's the franchisee in Sioux Falls, and did they give you any performance data?
I did not ask for any performance data. I asked them, the people that run it right now, they are not running under a national brand. They have, I think they're using Aerostay is what their brand is they have in Sioux Falls. I believe right now, people that are running that also run the clubhouse in town here.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
This would be one of those things you go for proposals to see who's interested. I know there are some other people that have expressed interest to Sean. So I think it's an RFP. I would anticipate that we would at least have 1 or 2 people of interest. The micro rooms is a little bit of concern to me because I just want to make sure we would provide them the width that does affect that roadway location. It looks like we have, and I have not sat down with all the leaseholds, but it looks like we have some flexibility that we can move the roadway over, and we're reconstructing or reconfiguring a lot of that area anyway. Doing it is a lot better than later.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I'm looking at Paula right now. It'd be interesting to hear what Dave and his team think. And you don't have to do that now, but it'd be interesting to see their thoughts.
Well, I know one thing is if you have a 5-story hotel, you have to frame it with metal. But if you go only 4 stories, it's wood. So it's a more affordable build. So that's all I can really say at the moment.
Well, that's once you get over that 4 stories, like I said, as you start getting closer to that shadow study issue impact and radar impact.
Mr. Chairman, that green space concerns me. If we could go back to that for a second.
Oh, the one right in the middle between the building?
Yeah, green space that's small, enclosed, not very inviting. Does it just become a trash collection area, snow? I would just like to see something kind of fleshed out there a little bit more.
Well, like right now, you guys have dog runs where people can take their dog to. And I know I see those at other airports, especially if you have more hunters coming in and out. You may not have quite the hunting crowd as you do in South Dakota or Western North Dakota. But that's one of the things where we'll see, and it's like some places have nice places, some places have a little green field and it varies.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to make sure we've got some thought as to what that green space is. If it's gonna be a dog walk, nobody's gonna go out there to sit and relax or take a walk themselves. Let's have a dog. So
Yeah, and I think, well, that's one of the things we talked about. with the
and
hotel
just some concept for what that really would look like.
Yeah, that's one of the
It,
things
it
that-
becomes sort of waste area. That, you know, how do you access a number of things?
Yeah, it's, well, on this, the anticipated access would be through the actual walkway. You'd have doors into it so that if you're going through that, you're connected to the terminal. You can go out either way and get into that area. There, you'd have to put signage out there for dock walk or picnic area. I don't envision people going to a terminal early and going out and sitting out there unless
Right.
they're got there way too early. I would think it'd become more an attribute for, like I said, the dogs, as well as if you're at the hotel and you just want to go out and have some place to sit outside. It's tough. We went back and forth. Brandon and I had this conversation as well. What do you do with it? One of the things with this is we also are trying to limit the view shed when you're driving in. We don't want to just impact the look to the terminal. So as you come in, you can see the second and third story of the terminal building. We want to keep everything as low as possible so we're not impacting what you're paying for in this terminal. And that's one of the hard things is you're balancing all these different areas. We talked about, boy, wouldn't it be nice if we had a internal walkway that's already baked inside the terminal building. Well, when you look at the operation in the backside, there's so much going on there you don't want the public can't be walking back there.
Rick?
Mr. Chairman, I want to just thank you for all the work you've done here. I mean, I think stepping up in the big picture, we want to get more people flying out of Hector. And this, I think, is a solution that would help us do that. People, we have early morning flights and we have late night flights. People would come in the night before, stay here and get up on those early morning flights. Or the reverse would be people come in at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, and rather than driving home, they would spend the night. So I think this is it was kind of an idea that we saw in Sioux Falls, and I think that's really a neat opportunity. We don't need to go in all the weeds right now, but one, the key was connecting it. When the hotel's connected, that makes sense. And the other thing that I think is exciting is you guys spent some time talking with the hotel owner at Sioux Falls, and they're interested. And so I think if they're interested, I think others would be interested as well. So again, I don't know if we need to do anything more here, but just kind of think about this and think about what, some of the next steps. I think at some point what we'd like to do is be able to go out for an RFP and have people, give us their proposals on a hotel here. And, from what I've heard, we're probably looking at, $100,000 plus as far as revenue for the airport every year.
Yeah, what I would recommend, and I'll work with Sean on this, is maybe in one of your next meetings, that some kind of an action where you guys commit to preserving this area and a site selection be developed. That way we don't start down, because you already have some contracts for designing roads and parking. I think we should hold those so that whatever we do aligns with that configuration in the future. So we'll come up with something. I'll work with Sean and we can put something together for an action.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay. What are your wishes? You want to receive and file, or you want to make a motion?
Well, I think what Tom said, just continue to work with Sean on working through this process. And if you guys need a motion, next meeting, we can make a motion. I'll receive and file.
Okay, motion to receive and file. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried. Okay, item 10, receive bid tabulation and recommendation of award to Mead and Hunt for glycol collection.
Take one of those and pass it down. That's just a
You got 2.5 minutes.
2.5 minutes.
It's already a 2-hour meeting.
Okay, so a couple of weeks ago, we had open bids for a glycol sewer that basically connects the terminal apron, the cargo apron, to the city of Fargo sewage lagoon. So it's basically collects all the runoff from the de-icing operations of the aircraft and gets it into a sewer system for treatment. Right now there is none, other than just vacuuming capabilities that trucked off site. So what this bid is for is, if you look at that sheet, the red alignment up to the point where it's dog legs to the west, on the very top of the page there. And the reason that that section is not included is because the FAA wanted us to bid it out this year at the last minute, and we didn't have a lot of the connection details worked out with the city of Fargo, so we just took that chunk out, and I'll call it like phase 2. That'll come later. So we had received bids from KPH and Saline Brothers. KPH was just over, the engineer's estimate was just over 4.5 million. KPH, the low bidder, was just over 4.6 million. And Saline Brothers there was basically right at 5.1 million. So reviewed all the bids, everything was in line as far as the bidding documents, as far as DB participation, good faith efforts, contractor's license, bonding, all of that required stuff. So our recommendation is to award this contingent upon receiving FAA grant funding to KPH.
What are your wishes?
Move we approve.
Second.
Motion to approve and seconded. Roll call vote, please. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, receive proposed construction administration contract for Mead and Hunt for terminal apron. Oh, and glycol collection.
All right, so at the last meeting, the airport authority approved the award of the terminal apron expansion to Reedy Construction out of South Dakota. This contract is, and this work will happen in 2025. This contract proposal for Mead and Hunt is to do all the required construction inspection. That is that amount is $806,500, not to exceed. So, if the contract works expeditiously, gets done in a shorter period of time, we're just not charging you for time or not out there. If it's just basically time and material that we're out there. Then there's also a required FAA closeout report, which is just a document that summarizes the project as far as financials and testing reports and DBE reporting, just all on down the line. That is a lump sum amount of $12,451. This contract went through a IFE review with an independent reviewer, and everything fell in line. I think the actual dollar amounts were off by less than $1,000, if I remember right.
So the 818 is
total.
Okay. Right.
Move we approve.
Motion to approve. Second.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. A roll call, please.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Item 12, receive change order number 3, Northern Improvement, North GA apron expansion for increase of $51,321.13.
Okay, so there's actually, all of you should have, again, received a copy of this in board packet. There's actually 3 components to this. The first one for $13,557 to add riprap for erosion control purposes at 4 sections for the stormwater detention pond. It's a new stormwater detention pond. You can see it if you go on County Road 20 here, right in this area, and just just added protection, I guess, for erosion control. Then there's also, at the request of the airport authority there, we had received a price to put in roadway edge reflectors. They're basically just fiberglass tubes that are, 3 or 4 feet high that delineate the edge of the road for snow removal purposes. The original intention was just to reuse the ones that were there. But like I said, at the request of the airport authority, we got a price just because they were faded or cracked or, so that's the edge reflectors. And then the other one was a cost increase of $27,712 for a water main lowering. So we put in about, I forget if it was a 36 or 48 inch diameter storm sewer that was basically going to the stormwater detention pond. And it was going over, by design, it was going over top of the water main because the assumption is it's, 7-8 feet deep in the ground. It was like 4.5 feet deep in the ground. So we had no choice. We had to lower the water main. So I reviewed all of this pricing with North Dakota DOT annual pricing, and everything falls in line. And then I sent this off to the FAA for their review and approval. I have not heard a response back yet. So I guess my recommendation is to approve this change order subject to the FAA concurrence. So the contract.
So move.
Motion been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Roll call, please.
Rashani. Bird.
Aye.
Osborne.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
And I will point out too that the previous change orders were a total deduct. Previous 2 change orders reduced the contract by about $207,000. So we're still $155,000.
You should have started with that, Jeff.
Yeah.
And recognize we're almost at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
I, at this point, would entertain a motion for a 5-minute recess.
So moved.
Motion been made. Second. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed?
So.
Selecting Colorado.
Call the meeting back to order. Item 13, receive update from Mead & Hunt regarding the scope of work associated with coordination of advertising, art, and sponsorship for terminal building and parking ramp.
Yeah, it's a pretty quick one. We've reached out and are communicating with Ivy Olin to get pricing on the procurement of artwork. So, and then also getting a proposal from IDOL as well for the exterior signage. So, in progress. I expect to meet with Ivy. I'm hoping to meet with her yet this week.
Alrighty, very good. Thank you. 14. Flint Group update on logo and marketing.
Good morning, everybody. Here we have our slideshow. So we've been back, a few times here looking at this. We're going to just kind of revisit where we were at. The board had asked for a few tweaks on the logo. One of them was to incorporate the name Fargo into the logo itself. There was also some concerns about the how vivid the blue was. It was a little more of a faded back blue, kind of a dusty blue, I guess. So we really did, moving forward here, add a little more pop to it. I think, Rick, you had brought this up last time, where it just felt like it faded off and it wasn't as prominent. So we really made it a little bolder this time.
Don't take my comment.
but I couldn't necessarily disagree with you. I do think that, we're very happy with where this ended up. Anything that we do and put before you is going to be our best recommendation, and we really do feel pretty strongly about this now. So we did update that main color palette. The primary blue is on the top, you see there, and then a secondary color palette that could be used as an accent in pieces and the brand as we move forward. So we did also explore a couple other options. So this is, I'm just going to be, kind of forthright in my recommendation here that this would be our recommendation right here for a finalized logo. I'm going to reiterate the FAR in here. Whenever we do branding for a company, we try to find something that is ownable over time, something that you own and nobody else can own. We talked about spelling out Fargo, but a lot of people can own Fargo. The city of Fargo technically owns Fargo when you think about it. So we really wanted something that is ownable over time. And your code, airport code, is not going to change. Nobody else has that airport code of FAR. And if we look at our primary target audience, somebody who looks to book a flight anywhere, they have to use FAR as the codes to book that flight when they do a web search to book any flight. That is just the facts, and I really feel strongly about that. Ultimately, again, this is your guys' decision as a board. So we're making what we feel is our best recommendation on really knowing the target audience. So that being said, we did explore the other options that were recommended or brought up last time. So we had this one here where we brought the word Fargo below the FAR. So we have FAR, then we have Fargo Hector International Airport all spelled out as another option, because that was brought up in the last board meeting as well, is do we want the location identifier Fargo in the name of the logo? You can see it doesn't diminish it on overall, but it does add some weight to the bottom of the logo here. And it is technically would have to be a DBA, doing business as, that you guys have to do from a legal standpoint, because it would technically be changing the name as it appears in outbound marketing. So you, from a legal standpoint, would have to do that. We're still using Hector in here though. And then the third one here, if you move one more forward, we explored shortening it. So Fargo Hector International Airport. So this is nice and tight, but it could be argued that we want an apostrophe in our logo. It kind of diminishes the word international. So those are kind of the three recommendations that we brought forward after refinement based on the board's recommendations and kind of where we're at right now. I can go through the rest of these, and then we have a case in point at the end of these. So you can keep going through here, Darren, if you'd like. So here's the three next to each other, as you can see, the Hector International, Fargo Hector, and then the abbreviated version. And then again, I wanted to show some in context so you guys can see. So we put our recommended logo here just so you guys can see how this works with the slightly brighter blue. I think it pops more now, like on the white. I think that was a big concern, and I could not disagree with that to the point where it's like, yes, let's make the change. Let's brighten that up a little bit. So you can see, like on the back of that shirt now, it has a little more stopping power overall, and it stands off. So, and then you can keep going through there. And then here's kind of some updated elements, again, integrated. I love how that wood grain looks on that granite back there in some of the environmental design. And then lastly here, I think we have what we found is maybe an opportunity for advertising and possibly sponsorship within the airport, something about calling Fargo home. So in this instance, taking the multi-million, if not billion-dollar companies that call North Dakota home and highlighting them, because what percentage of airport traffic is business traffic that's coming to see one of these companies?
Nice.
It's a high percentage. So you do that as your flagship, saying here these businesses call North Dakota home, and it's right front and center when you kind of get off in the area when you're deboarding. So. And then lastly, we also had some opportunities here where we just updated the existing campaign with this easy way to get away with the new logo. So you can see it in context here. You can see it that's a little more readable compared to the old one for sure. And then lastly, I think we have two slides. This is the one from last time. Again, branding potentially in the parking ramp. Bring in some of those colors. This is existing shot of what the baggage claim area could be, bringing those colors in. And then I think we have one of the bus. Oh, we have the outside sign. We have a lot more slides here than I thought. So this was proposed by another sign company out on 19th Avenue North here. what that could look like. And we just wanted to put it in perspective, just so you can see it in context again. That we're not looking to get a sign approval because we're agnostic when it comes to a sign. But we just wanted to show you guys what it could look like in context. And then we updated the bus wrap. So the bus wrap is currently out there, but then, just to show you guys how this could look in a bus wrap with the expanded colors, the easy way to get away, and then the easy way to Denver, the easy way to Vegas, the easy way to Chicago, kind of promoting those direct flight locations. And then we had an idea here too, with a spot the bus. So just a promotion idea, because we're always thinking of different ideas, where you have one that's like maybe you spot the bus and you can go on social. So it'd be like more of a social promotion for marketing that we just kind of came up with here. So if you spot the bus, you can go on here and you can enter to win a free luggage set or something like that throughout town.
Discussion.
Maybe you want to go back to that one slide, John, maybe, or Karen, maybe that slide number
To the
4.
logo one?
Yeah,
With the
probably
three
number
logos.
4 or 5. It has the 3 options. Just so you guys can take a look at this. Yeah, here.
Great job. Thank you. This is exactly, at least personally, this is exactly what I was looking for.
Okay, thanks.
Discussion.
You kind of stopped at the cost calculator.
Yes, we did.
Is that like for website?
So the cost calculator was like a head-to-head comparison on that last slide there. It would be updated with current colors. That was the last slide we had. It was something that we could do. We could put together a bid for it. I can't remember where we were at with that. But if somebody wanted to calculate the entire cost, like drive time, travel to Minneapolis or to Sioux Falls, plus parking and your ticket, it would compare like, oh, I could actually save $200 flying out of Fargo instead of the cost of a hotel and gas to get to Minneapolis, St. Paul. So it was a direct head-to-head comparison with a cost calculator that we would add to the website. We just thought it would be a nice little differentiator. People, they say it's cheaper to fly out of Fargo, or it can be, and then the headache of having to drive. But if we can put dollars and cents to it and make believers out of these people that are critics, and say, hey, yeah, it really is, because by the time you got a meal, you got a hotel, you got driving,
Yes.
kids in a car, I mean, that's priceless, right? So they don't even have that factor in there. But we put all that in there, and I think it's something that could be a differentiator and really put us head to head. But yeah, you guys know.
Any other discussion?
I'm typically a less is more, but to make it idiot proof, I kind of like, and that's probably the wrong way to frame it, but the second one, the Fargo Hector, for the person who's not from Fargo.
It's all inclusive.
Spells it out.
And I don't disagree that it doesn't add, it's a little bit heavier, but it doesn't look, we wouldn't put these forward if we wouldn't be able to live with these.
It's actually visually a little more balanced.
Yeah, you could argue that for sure, yes. And you get our Fargo in there, so.
I agree with Dr. Bashani.
Well, one of the things I don't know very many airports. I can think of one that use their airport designator as their logo. LAX is the only one I know of.
I've found more than a dozen out there that use.
In the logo? Or
Yeah.
in the logo, Jim?
Yeah.
Sioux Falls.
LAX is the only one. Sioux Falls, no. Sioux Falls is Sioux Falls Regional Airport, otherwise known as Joe Foss Field. This is Hector International Airport.
This is what we're talking about, like the logo, FSD, where they use it, the logo. Here's San Jose, SJC. Here's Charlotte Douglas. So instead of it being, so the logo is actually informational.
I just think it's something that's ownable. And the word far, I just look like you fly to here, you can go far. You fly far, fly Fargo. I mean, we've used that in the past. But again.
What are your wishes?
I'd like to make a motion for acceptance of the middle Fargo Hector International Airport and the package as presented.
Motion been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Yes. Bird. Aye. Osmer.
Aye.
Heckman.
Aye.
Captain.
No. Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for the
15,
presentation.
continue discussion regarding Clear Channel communication regarding sponsorships.
There was, the board requested this on the agenda. Paula had it on her list of items, and there was no direction or action taken by the board last meeting when we received their communication, so we're looking for direction.
I just have a comment, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if we need a motion or not, but I thought on this previous one that Flint just presented, I thought showing these 6 businesses that are really impactful of our community, I almost look at that as kind of the sponsorship that I'm thinking, not having who will pay the most for something at the airport. And so I just think this is a real gray area. And from my perspective, I think what we need to do, and I'd like to maybe engage Flint to kind of look for some sponsorships or companies that might be interested in because they have the local connection. And then when we have some of those companies, depending on what they're planning to do, I think it would solve this issue with Clear Channel. I think there's confusion now about, is someone going to buy advertising or someone going to sponsor something? And I think sponsoring that Welcome to Fargo thing, I would not look at that as advertising. I would look at that as pure sponsorship. So I think this whole thing in my mind would be clearer if we had specific examples of what we're dealing with. So I don't know if we need to negotiate Clear Channel or do anything else because the contract says, it's silent on sponsorships. We have a legal opinion on it, but until we know what we're asking for and they know what we're asking for, I think it's hard to resolve.
Mr. Chairman, the communication from Clear Channel and just that was sent was saying sponsorships are advertising. Any new addition they claim. And I just think we have an existing contract with Clear Channel and we need clarity. Does it expand? Does it, is it inclusive of sponsorships? My sense in this is we have an agreement with them. We have the existing advertising spots. We don't have sponsorship. That we may consider that as ongoing, and anything beyond that is new. And that would be a counter position to theirs. They're saying it's all inclusive. It expands with expansion of parking garage and additional terminal, and that all continues under the existing contract. I believe our position is more no. That controls what's existing. This all is new. So I don't know how we move this forward, but I think we should signal the Clear Channel what we're looking at.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think according to that agreement, we have to approve any new signage Clear Channel does.
Right.
And so I think before we do that, we want clarity on this issue.
Mm-hmm.
So that we hold off approving a whole array of new signage until we know what we have for sponsorship. Is it advertised or not? I don't disagree if State Farm wants to sponsor something, there's a tinge of advertising in there.
Well,
I guess the question is, what do you think?
Again, their position was that they would have to buy a Clear Channel advertising package on top of that. And so I don't know if we want to say we view this as this is the existing package. We're looking at everything beyond this is new to help them understand our position. And do we want to end up in court?
I get a sense that our attorney would like to jump in here.
Well, so we've gone along as the questions have come up and the contract's been analyzed. Would it be helpful if I created sort of a position paper? Here's where Clear Channel lies on these issues. Like they absolutely believe under Section 3A that they're entitled to additional space. And that would be assigned to their assigned spaces within airport buildings, i.e. a parking garage. So I don't know if it would be helpful if I laid out the board's position and then laid out their position.
So what my initial agenda request was to develop a response. So I think that we're on the same page when, as a board, we can say, this is what our position is. And I think we've established that we don't want to have to engage Clear Channel in sponsorship and going back to the contract that does not specify sponsorship, that would be where our opinion comes from.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I don't view this as a legal battle with them. I think it's just a business thing to find the right space. And so I think it would be helpful to know, are we obligated to grant them access to a new terminal, parking lot, those types of things? Or can we read the contract in the way that I read it that said any new advertising needs to be approved for them to expand? So I think that's a key point for us is I think we have to approve new advertising.
And then it comes into play also playing the devil's advocate that they do have exclusivity, but you're correct. Assigned spaces would have to be authorized by the board. So maybe it'd be helpful if I do that, create sort of the position papers what the board deems the contract that I've advised and their position.
And if you go back to Appendix A, it says, here's the spaces and here's the exclusions. It does not refer at all to new parking garages or even new construction area within the terminal, except that if a current sign were to be moved, for instance, we get a different, I don't know, whatever, we put up a wall or we take down a wall. So now that wall space is no longer available, that we will move that sign to another space. We'll give them another space, but it doesn't refer to new construction or new spaces or a parking garage.
And I will certainly represent that when it comes to the board's position.
Well, again, I don't think it's a legal thing. I think it's a business decision. We figure out what we're talking about. They figure out what they want, and then we come to an agreement.
So I didn't mean to interrupt you. So I think at the end of the day, it's a business decision. I think for Clear Channel, for the board, I'm just here to always be mindful of the legal pitfalls where they might rise. So, and the last thing I'll say is I get the very clear understanding from Clear Channel that they want to try to come to some agreement with this board. So the board's comfortable. I don't know if they're comfortable or not, but I get that feeling there's that element of compromise versus their strict reading of the contract.
So we did discuss this at the last meeting, and you were calling in, so I don't know if you heard like all of it, but when they said, Thaddeus is on, the letter said if we were to, if the airport and only the airport can go, their contract said only the airport can go and like staff and find a sponsor. For instance, we have a piece of artwork that we want sponsored or that we find a sponsor for, say it's the Stern Foundation. Then the Stern Foundation would also have to have an equal amount of advertising in the terminal, which doesn't really make sense because sometimes it might be a nonprofit it didn't seem like a compromise at all. It put undue burden on staff and then staff or somebody goes out and procures a sponsor, and now that sponsor is also obligated to spend twice as much money because they had to do advertising in the terminal. So it didn't really seem like a good faith compromise.
So for me, and I did go pull the minutes up because I was in a very busy airport and wanted to make sure that I knew the discussion. And I didn't take any action in terms of a response since it was that it's discussion continued, no action taken. That's kind of what I thought when I saw it on the agenda today. That would be, where do you want me to move forward?
Discussion?
Well, I think there's several different issues all jumbled into one. That makes it very difficult. So I think, backing up, the question is, if we want sponsorships, who's going to get those sponsorships? And is it the staff or is it someone else? And I don't think that our staff is set up to do that. Again, from my perspective, what I saw today that Flint presented, I like that a lot. So I might say that we ask Flint to consider, being our lead on sponsorships for things at the airport. They understand the design, the flow of everything, how it's supposed to look. having, and I think they'd be far better than Clear Channel, 1,000 miles away doing that. So that I think is one. I think the second thing is if we need to make a statement, which I don't think we do, but if we need to make a statement to Clear Channel, I think we say to Clear Channel, we don't approve any expansion in the new terminal or the parking lot until we resolve the sponsorship issue with them. So if they think that they're entitled to all that, then they can come back and make a statement. But again, I agree with Stacy. I thought they were very interested in working something out. They don't want a lawsuit. They don't want that. They're defending their business, and I get it. So, I guess that's kind of my thoughts. If someone wants I would ask maybe the motion would be, I don't want to identify Flint specifically, but maybe the staff could reach out and identify who might be local that could help secure sponsorships.
Mr. Chairman, is that in the form of a motion?
Yeah, I guess I would make that motion that the staff identify someone that would secure sponsorships locally.
That staff?
Staff would identify someone who could get sponsorships.
Would that maybe be an RFP?
Well, I don't want to complicate it. I mean, I think, yeah, but that needs to be decided. We've talked about sponsorships for a year and we don't have any yet. So I would say if the staff wants to talk to Flint, or if there's someone else out there that's engaged in sponsorships, they can do that. Just bring a recommendation back to us on who they'd recommend that we hire to help us with sponsorships. Is that clear? Mr. Chairman, or should I restate it, Joe?
I don't know. I'll make it as clear
You're so
as I
good at that.
can a couple times.
I'll second.
I would move that the staff identify
Who might
organization.
be local to identify sponsorships and then bring a recommendation back to the board.
To secure sponsorship.
Okay, motion been made and seconded.
Mr. Chairman, I think
Further
in
discussion, John?
I think inherent in that motion is we reject their position on sponsorships in their letter. Because
Clearly.
Yeah.
we're proceeding, beyond that. So that we're
That motion probably covers both issues right now.
Yeah. So we're clear that
I don't have anything to add to the motion. Just one additional comment is they're not currently doing sponsorships, and they haven't for several years at the airport. So we're not changing their current revenue stream.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Received communications from Pfeiffer's regarding farmland cash rent analysis and Beaton Farms cash rent offer.
So at the board's direction, I was directed to call Appraisal Services. I gave you a recap on July 23rd that they no longer provide that type of information for farmland rental and cash values after Jerry Lincoln retired. They directed me to Brian Natwick at Natwick Appraisals. He doesn't have any updated farm information available, and it would cost more for him to compile the information. He's 1 to 2 months out before he can do a report. Brian referred me to Dale Weston at Farmers National. I spoke to Dale Weston. He no longer manages farmland, but he said the range in Cass County is 150 to 225 per acre. But he said, keep in mind that all cash rent is all hearsay. He gave examples of, family renting to farmlands and family parents renting to their kids and so forth. So it's probably skewed in terms of what the cash rent value actually is. Each parcel's cash rent value is dependent upon a number of factors. As we all know, proven yield, drainage, tiled land, non-tiled land, soil type. And in his experience, none of the privately held landowners will tell you what the cash rate is that they're receiving. The airport has a hassle factor to it that Dale's aware of. You have to get a permit. Fargo Police Department escorts some of our property. on certain routes, and plus we have crop restrictions due to the FA, which is also a diminishing factor. No corn allowed inside the fence, no sunflowers in your property, and the tenant has to pay the property taxes and drain taxes.
Sean, do I remember right too that why it wasn't planted last year, it was too wet to get in and then
Same as this year.
too wet to even mow?
Correct. So Dale advised me to call Kevin Pfeiffer. I did that. Kevin referred me to a gentleman here, initially with Dan Hoffland, and then got transferred over to Morgan Ulmer. Morgan provided the analysis in your packet. And then if you see the offer from Beaton Farms, their offers fall within the range, 210 per acre. Some inside the fence west of drain 10 is at 180 because of the drainage issues. And I guess if you have any questions, I did chat with the city. I got a copy of theirs. They're receiving 120 to 150 per acre, according to Mr. Sprague and Susan here. Let's see here. Yeah, they're in the 120 to 150 range. They're not even close to what market is on the city property. So my recommendation is to accept the offer from Beaton Farms for parcels 1 through 9. They will reimburse the airport authority for the property and drain taxes. They've requested a change in the payment. We had required all cash rent on May 1st. They've requested a split of 50% April 1st and 50% October 1st, which is pretty common practice throughout the region here. So my recommendation is to award to Beaton Farms tracts 1 through 9. This does increase the average of 149 per acre that the Fargo Dome and the Fargo Park District and NDSU are paying. Their contracts automatically mirror whatever the average is that we get for the other farmland here for the non-government entities.
At the risk of my colleagues at NDSU punching me, I'd like to make that motion.
Okay, is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Motion's been made.
Just the amount again, yeah, just the dollar amount.
It's 1,265.6 acres for the Beaton Farms. It comes out to $259,683.30.
That's what, 149?
No, that's what the current rate would be. It's up from, I didn't calculate how much it's up, but it's.
Yeah, just the amount per acre is what.
210 to 180. On tracks 1, let's see, track 2, they're proposing 180 acres. That's the property that's inside the fence west of drain 10. Basically from here over to County 20. It's so flat, it just, the drainage is horrible. So this is 180. Everything else they're offering 210 per acre.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize for throwing the wrench in the plans last meeting, but I just think that's a problem having a real estate guy on this board. And I think this was perfect, Sean. I just want to compliment Sean for putting this together. I mean, we know that, this is where the market's at. And we could be in a situation the market goes down in the future and we have to lower the rents. And so I think it's really important to know that.
Property prices are horrible right now, so they're struggling. So 2023 property and drain taxes on these parcels is $32,195.95. So that would be the reimbursement amount. So
the only other question I had was on the drain tile. I know you'd mentioned that at one point they said they'd put in drain tile if we did a 10-year lease. And my understanding is the drain tile is like $1,000 to $1,400 an acre. I mean, it's a huge expense. And so that might be something that if there might make sense to do a long-term contract. At the end of the day, 10 years from now, we're going to have a more valuable land to rent.
Their dad had talked about doing that, but now as they pencil that out with current commodity prices, they wouldn't offer that if be interested. But if things change, they could come back to the table.
Well, that might be something just to think about next spring. Is this a 3-year contract with them then? Or
2025, 26, and 27.
And is it flat or is it increase each year?
It's flat.
The good part is they're going to be the ones most motivated to tile the land.
Yeah, I mean, I would just
rent for property they can't use.
Absolutely. I mean, I would, just let them know we're very interested in partnering with them on tile or do something going forward.
It definitely improves the land, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and it'll increase the rental value too.
Roll call, please.
Shawnee, Bird, Cosgrove.
Aye.
Heckman.
Aye.
Captain.
Aye. Discuss airport authority meeting frequency.
I'll try to make this short.
Johnny, and length.
It'll either be short or long, one of the two. Boards I've been on, as I'm sure is the case with a couple other people here, I've never been on a board that meets more than once a month. And most of those boards have been bigger and more complicated organizations. And the one I'm going to point to as the best illustration is here in Fargo, the Sanford Hospital, which was a $500 million construction project. We met once a month. So I just wanted to put it out there and see what people's reactions are, whether we would move these starting in October to a once-a-month meeting. Now, that'll obviously mean a lot of the minutia that we discussed, with 25 people sitting in a room for 2.5 hours, we won't be able to cover anymore. But a lot of that minutia, and my experience on other boards, isn't what boards should be doing in the first place. So I want to recognize up front, there's something that has to be given up, which is the board acting like the manager of the airport instead of the board overseeing the airport. That's a culture change. I want to recognize that up front, but I would still like to make a motion that we move to once a month.
Is there anything in our bylaws that says we have to meet on?
The bylaws would need to be changed, just as we've talked in the past about doing a consent agenda. I mean, all of that is up to you. If you want to change the bylaws, that's what you would do.
With the required bylaw.
You just have to decide what's the effective date when you would do that.
I'm gonna swag it as October, give us a few months to work on it.
You know, I'm not against that, but I sit on an awful lot of boards myself, both locally and nationally, and very few of them go beyond an hour. We're here now for 3 hours, 2 hours and 45 minutes to be exact.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'll second that motion. I think that's exactly why we need to do this in a different way. We spend 2.5 hours every single 2 weeks. And I think if we met once a month, I mean, if you look at today's meeting, we accomplished more in the last half hour, probably as far as meeting agenda, because I think I think it's important. I think this is a good move. Jeff Schultz is meeting with people now. I think we have a lot of changes in the bylaws, but I think this might help give a signal to him to say, okay, understand how they're going to work and how do they work in between more effectively.
So we're going to incorporate in your motion to have to look into the bylaws and make changes if possible.
Yes, sir.
Okay, motion been made. Is there a second?
Could I, Mr. Chair? So I just met with Dr. Jeffrey Schatz last week, and we discussed some items with governance, and how we could be more efficient would be to have meetings outside, like planning meetings outside the regular meeting, and then you bring that information forward, which is similar to what we did yesterday. So I think, does this also incorporate moving forward with some governance?
Well, we haven't met with Dr. Schatz as a whole or him coming before us yet. So I think that's a little far out in the future yet.
I think it's just part of the conversation.
You may want to address that, Dean, what you think of Schatz and kind of that role that he's playing and where that goes.
I agree with that potential, and I agree with Tim's position. We're not ready to do that yet.
Mhm.
But just Tim.
I just think it would be a part of the conversation in transitioning to that one, to, rework how we're doing some of the agendas. And,
If we were moving to a once a month meeting, the next conversation would be just what you're talking about.
Okay.
We also run into this little complication.
Okay.
Can 2 members be on this whatever committee working on something?
Motion has been made and seconded. I'm going to call a roll on that one too.
Shawnee.
Yes.
Bird.
Yes.
Cosgrove. Heckman.
Aye.
Captain.
Aye. Next item, motion to adjourn.
Excuse me. Mr. Chair, it was mentioned several meetings ago that we would add a new or old business item to the end of the meeting. And that's not there. One thing I would like to do is to commend Chief Noyes and his team at the fire department for the exemplary and all the extra work they went too, to make sure that, to work with the air show and provide a really safe environment. So I wanted to just make sure that we recognize the fire department here. And then also, as a follow-up to the attendance on the training at Quotient, that seminar or training is now full. And so if we want to be on a waiting list, you know, I think it would be helpful if we could move a little bit more expediently when we make these decisions. And so as a result, we can be, somebody can be on the training or on the waiting list if we would like to choose who that would be.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
You're looking for
Second.
people to be on the waiting list.
So who would want it, like, who is, we decided to send somebody, we didn't decide who to send. As a result, the person did not register and the training is full.
That's the one in
Gotcha, I
Asheville.
understand
I
now.
authorize you to go to Asheville.
I thought it was one member non-specified, but I can put my name on the waiting list if you'd like.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you were.
I thought it was obvious because you were the one that put it on the agenda, so I thought the board knew that it would be you. If not-
Are you talking about this thing in Asheville?
Yeah.
Well, I thought you were going.
No,
I think the specific motion was
Staff would
to,
appoint someone.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Please put yourself on the waiting list.
Okay, all right.
I was the busiest month since 1931.
Good.
Thank you, Paula, for bringing that up.